Welcome back to Worth the Effort Woodworking and my semi-annual, I skipped last year, holiday gift guide. And this year we are taking the theme of budget gifts, something that people will actually use, because these are things that I've bought myself over the years, or the past few years, that I use almost every time I'm woodworking, surprising even myself. And for you psychopaths that always read the last page of a book first, here's the dozen I'm going to be talking about, but I'm holding out on one that I'm going to call a bonus. What we're talking about here is a couple saws, some shears, some aids, some magnets, some sharpeners, leather, all that kind of stuff. So let's get started. I'll start with this one. These past few years, I've been getting into more green woodworking, specifically spoon carving, using an axe and stuff like that, because my thinking is that whenever I'm traveling in a few years, I can do a little bit of woodworking on the side and maybe even set up at fairy art markets. The thing is, my method of sharpening the axes was referring to some of these smaller square diamond stones. I had a 400 and a 1200, and they work just fine. They're just kind of cumbersome, and I never really liked the fact that I have my fingers so close to the edge when I'm working it, as you can see this. And this is something that I also do on the lathe all the time when I'm sharpening up my spindle gouges and my I'm rehoning my spindle gouges, bowl gouges, and I'm actually sharpening my skews. I'm using these kinds of sharpening devices all the time. Well, I saw this ad from Lee Valley for this item right here. It's a Sharpall, and I'll put a link down to all this stuff down below. I have found some of these items on Amazon, so that link will be a it's not a sponsor, I forget what they call it. I get a little kickback if you buy from them, but these are all stuff that y'all have seen me use in my videos. I spent my own money on that kind of stuff. We'll just go out there. It's just kind of, it's out there. But I did buy this from Lee Valley, and I found out later that Amazon sells them, and it is a diamond stone. And what's cool about it, it's got a 220 side and a 600 side. 600 side, and it's held on by a magnet, and it's got a little registration there, so it's not going to spin in this little device. And basically you can use either side. You can see it sits ever so proud of the edge, so that you can, when you use it, it's not getting in the way. And I like the fact that I can now sharpen and my fingers stay totally out of the way, plus I can use the entire stone now, whereas those square ones I could only use a portion of it. And it's just kind of a circular motion right like that. Feel for my burr, do the other side, and I can get back to work. And I set up the angle by hollow grinding it. So there we go. That's how I now sharpen my axes, and it's really that fast for me. I'm kind of using this almost as a hone, and if I ever nick the edge by hitting a mark or something like that, I flip it over to the 220 side and reshape it. I just feel a lot more confident in this. I don't have to be as careful. I know it sounds like I'm being carefree, but with this, my fingers are out of the way, and I'm just using the whole thing, so I can add pressure, take away pressure, that kind of stuff. It just works so much better, and I've gotten to the point where I'm using this item over on my lathe instead of a slipstone for a lot of my sharpening on the 600 side, because even my beloved slipstone that we've talked about in the past, it's only 600. It's going to take me a little bit longer to break this one in, because it's still, you know, it's got the coarseness to it that they break in over time, and so it will be polishing better the more I use it. But really, this is a quarter of the price of all that other stuff I'm using, and I'm finding it more easy to use. So if you have a woodworker, either green woodworking, or even if you're just sharpening your lawnmower blades, that kind of stuff, this is an excellent choice. Next is going to be one of the pricier items on my list, and it's still only about $40. But this is a saw, and this is one once again I got from my green woodworking, but I'm finding this has replaced one of my hand saws in my truck for whenever I go to the stores. I want to break down 2x12s and stuff like that. This it's nice and convenient. I like the fact that it locks, it folds out. It's one of these silky saws that's got a Japanese sawtooth design, whereas it is a hardened tooth set up for a cross cut. Though I've done a little bit of ripping with it and it seems just fine. And I use this a lot for my spoon carving because it does fold up so nicely and just fits in the bag I use it. It does come with a case with a little clasp so you can put it on your wrist, because this is actually built for arborists and stuff like that. But I'm finding it great for woodworking. So if you're looking for a unique gift that they might not be thinking of, one of these silky saws is wonderful as something to throw in the truck for helping breakdown work or emergency cutting or stuff like that, and for green woodworking. Really do like this thing. I'm kind of impressed, especially for only $40. The blades are replaceable, but look at how thick they are. I mean, these are not the flexible, typical Japanese saw blades. Now next, if you have a power tool woodworker in your family, these small on-off kind of magnets, I cannot believe how much I've turned to using them. They operate pretty strongly. These right here, they say they're rated at 150 pounds, but I know that I can push them a little bit, so I take that with a grain of salt. I'll put the ones that I actually bought. I bought a set of 2 of them that I use down below, but you can follow the company link for even stronger versions. Now the thing about these is they work by lifting a magnet up and down so that they have like this one is on, this one is off. To turn it off, I just spin that down. Now it's fairly easy. I have used these in glue ups. For small items, I'll put a piece of parchment paper down on this one. I can lock one down, and a lot of times all I need to do is push it and then lock it to close it down, and it squeezes something together. But more often than not, I'm using these as stops on power tools. For example, I make lots and lots of these sizes. They're all a specific size. So if I know I'm going to do a specific size, a lot of times what I will do is I will come over, I will set my fence like that, and it tells me how far over that needs to be. I can then bring this over, lock it, so that doesn't move, and that is the same distance as I had it over here. I can now move this out of the way, and when I'm using my miter saw, I can use this as my bump and push across. That way nothing's going to be trapped between the fence on the side. I do this all the time. And a pretty cool trick on the bandsaw is I don't use it on this reference. I use it on the corner. I'll set that corner up the distance over I want, lock it down, and now I can get a very consistent width, and I can move this back and forth to compensate for drift. So, there you go. If you set your bandsaw up, you won't have much drift, but this distance never changes, so it doesn't really matter, and it just allows me to get a specific distance, especially when I'm duplicating curved parts. Because if I want to follow this curve right here, a flat fence is not going to do me any good. But this right here, I can follow the curve on the blade really, really easy. Now, sadly, I did buy 2 of them, but really, one of them, that's how I use it. Now, I'll have to look it up, but I do believe those magnets were about $40 each, but there's so many people out there making them. I'm sure you can find some brand that will work, and from my impression, they all work fairly similar. Though I do believe that the person who's kind of brought them to the common man out there is Mag Switch. Now, the next item is just a super dirt cheap thing. It's a drill block. I cannot believe how much I use this nowadays. This thing is only $7, and all it is precise holes. A lot of times I will use it to figure out the size of nuts or bolts so I can figure out what drill to use. But it's just a way for me to guarantee that I'm going to be drilling straight up and down. So they fit just perfectly in there. it's locked at 90 degrees. Now this, I will freely admit, this is a crutch, but for $7-8, come on, it's kind of nice to know for sure you're drilling perfectly plumb to the surface. Next up is something that every time I have it in my video, somebody asks me in the comments, where'd you get that? And it's a plain screwdriver from Lee Valley. You actually have to look it up specifically. You look up screwdrivers or anything like that. It's just for removing caps of planes. It just fits perfectly on all the Stanleys, the Miller Falls, that kind of stuff, to remove the screw for the caps. I've also found it works extremely well on the Eclipse style sharpening gauges, because they are the little screw on the side of them, the holders, they are the perfect size for this, even the Eclipse knockoffs. So that's where most people see me use it, is with that. When I was using the older style, I've upgraded to this one, which I like quite a bit. But it's a nice little screwdriver that's fairly inexpensive, and it's one of those niceties to have in the shop. Now, I just looked it up, and these are going for just under $28, and there's some free shipping on Lee Valley if you buy a certain dollar amount. So there are other things I'll be talking about that you could also get from there to get a really nice gift for a woodworker, $50 to $100. Though I will say, if you want to find this, you need to look through the search for plain screwdriver, otherwise you'll never find it. And since we're talking about planes, next I think I'll talk about the Hock blades. This is a great thing to buy somebody just starting out, or even a more experienced one, because it's like a one-day project or even a half-day project to make something like the hand plane you've seen me use in almost all of my hand tool woodworking videos. Now, Ron Hock has been making these blades forever. He started making them for James Krenov, and it kind of launched this entire segment of the woodworking craft, making these laminate-style hand planes. And all it is a slightly curved chip breaker, very fine, and a very fine steel blade. Fairly simple, and you can buy them from $40 on up. Ron has recently retired, and fortunately for us, he sold the company to Lie-Nielsen, who is going to continue making them to the same quality that he has all these years, and they are still supplying them to all the retailers that Ron was working with. I bought mine from Lee Valley, and I just checked, and these kits are ranging from $40 on up for this style of kit. And they have other kits out there if you want to make different style hand planes that they supply. Either way, it's a great idea for a gift for a woodworker that'll result in a tool that they'll use for a lifetime. And speaking of kits to make tools, there's a company called Tools for Working Wood that is basically a toy store for us woodworkers. And they make one very unique tool kit that's only about $20, though you can spend a little bit more to make it easier for your woodworker. Let me show you, because that's exactly how I made this bow saw. Now, a bow saw is a tool used to cut curves, but I will be honest with you, I basically use mine as a glorified coping saw to remove my dovetail waste, because I absolutely hate coping saws, and it works wonderfully as that kind of tool. And the kit you can buy for $20 is basically these pins right here, and then your woodworker can make the handles for them. Now, I have turned handles, but you can do that with just a pocket knife and stuff like that. You just need to drill and epoxy the hole for the other side of this to go in. They also make a kit for $30 that will include a set of blades, and that's really all you need to make a bow saw, is the pins and the blade. Everything else is just basic woodworking and some string. So this is, once again, $20 will buy you the kit to make the saw. $30 will buy you the kit plus a bunch of different size blades so that they can experiment with that. Once a great gift for a starting woodworker, or even one that's been out there that curses their coping saw. Next up is a hammer. And if you spend 10 bucks on it, I would be surprised. You normally see this hammer sitting right here because I use it so often. It's just one of those rubber and nylon ones. But what's unique about this one is its weight. It's only a 6-ouncer, and a bunch of people make them. And once again, I think you'll find these for $10, maybe $12 out there. But I use this so much. The reason why mine looks funky is because I sanded off the finish that was on there because I don't like the glossy finish because it makes my hands kind of blister if I'm using it a lot. And I do use this a lot. In fact, the reason why I have blue tape on there right now, because I was even using this on a Harley and it got a little grease on it, and then I didn't want to clean it off very much, so I just put blue tape on the top. But I use this all over the place, especially with like seating dovetails and stuff like that, if I'm not using the metal hammer. For general dovetails, I just use this one. For fine ones, I use a metal one because of the sound. But anyways, you'll see this and me use it in my videos all the time because it sits right there. Another item that you're going to see on my back wall a lot, because I've gotten to where I'm using it quite a bit, and this is fairly new to me. I've bought this within the past year, but it's this Carbide sharpener. Not every blade in my collection needs to be perfectly sharp. Stuff like this general pocket knife that I use for opening boxes and stuff, yes, I like it to be sharp, and this is the tool I'll use to sharpen these kinds of tools. I also use it to sharpen scissors and stuff like that. And basically, it's a plane for metal, because you can take it, and if you lean it forward a little bit, you'll actually just scrape off a little metal, and you can see it on the shavings that you're making and in the shiny spot on the edge of this blade. So you just do both sides. Careful with this direction. I'm kind of doing it the wrong way. You should be doing it the other way. But I basically shave it to sharp instead of grinding it to sharp on stones. And it works just fine. That's a sharp blade. And once again, it's, a sub $20 tool. I did buy mine from Lee Valley, but I have since found out that it is sold on Amazon. So I'll put a link down to both of those down below in case you don't want to support Jeff Bezos. Next up, since I was speaking about scissors, having a really nice pair of shop shears for everything for cutting up packages to even cutting sandpaper, cutting leather. I mean, you're constantly in need of a nice shears. I have a set of vintage shears, and that's the way I would actually suggest you go, is eBay or garage sales or something like that, and then have them sharpened if you don't know how to sharpen them, and present them as a gift. These are a set that I have, a mid-size set from Clueless. I got it from a one of those hobby stores in my city. I'm really happy with these. Not all scissors I've been happy with, and they sit right here and constantly get used because in this shared shop, my other scissors have gotten misplaced and I just can't find them. The vintage ones that I really do like. Next up, I want to talk about an accessory for a tool that I've recommended multiple years in the past. The Sloyd knife. Now, these Sloyd knives would be a great and wonderful gift, and I've talked about them in the past, even multiple versions. I have 3 or 4 around here just for easy access because they are very inexpensive and one of the highest quality tools out there, price irrelevant. But the sad thing is that they come with these hard plastic sheaths that are kind of hard to get in and out of. Here's another size of them, and I just don't like them. They're kind of chintzy. You can attach them to the wall right with these little things, right, this belt hook right here with screws, but once again, it isn't nice. What I suggest is a very nice leather sheath. I got this one from Robin Wood. He's over in England, so if you don't order soon, you might not be able to get it. So I do believe he's set up a distributor here to save in shipping costs. But you use it over time and it gets fitted towards the knife. And this one right here does not have the belt attachment to it, and I bought it because this sits in my carving bag, and banging around it really protects the blade. I have another one that's not as nice of leather, but it came with a little belt loop that I simply drilled a hole through. yeah, drilled a hole through so that I could screw it to the wall. Can you see that? And it gets, I have several of these knives. This is the one I just keep over by my workbench for doing bevels and stuff like that. And that kind of sheath protects it, but it also is a nice place to hang it. And this is one of the things that if you put a little bit of oil on the inside, it kind of keeps the knife from getting rusty, which that plastic kind of one doesn't do. And speaking of leather, number 12 on the list is just go buy a leather candy store, something like craft store, and buy some scrap thick leather for your woodworker. You use this stuff all over the place in the workshop. I have it on my bench vices. I put it underneath the pads of my bench hooks. It protects the work when you're clamping stuff to it. And this right here is the latest thing I made for it, is because when I'm doing green woodworking, carving spoons, I like to put stuff against my chest when I'm carving it, and this just kind of prevents me from bruising myself, because I did notice you don't feel the pain, but the next day you end up with all these bruises because you have a lot of pressure right here as you're carving stuff. So this is just an example of how often I use it. And I have a box in the back that's just filled of other leather workers' scraps, and they kind of sell them in just a bin by the pound at most leather working places. So just a box of scrap leather. Your woodworker is going to find uses for it, and it's one of those things that they'll be thanking you for years because, oh, I got this from her. I'm using it all over the place. Now, there you go. 12 budget gifts for woodworkers. I think the most expensive in the list was probably those magnets, because a lot of people will buy them in pairs instead of just singly. I did promise you a bonus. And that bonus is, I'm going to show you a difference between me and Dad, is this is something that is a consumable in a woodworking shop, but it'd be kind of a funny gift for somebody to unwrap. A bottle of Everclear or grain alcohol, 190 proof alcohol. This is not stuff you're going to be drinking, though I know college kids will use it for mixers. I typically buy the Everclear brand just because I like the bottles, but they have cheaper versions out there. Dad typically gets the cheapest, and right now it's Mohawk. But you will use this for not only cleaning off abrasive, you use blue tape or something like that. You leave it a little bit too long. Sometimes you have some tape glue to remove off of that. If you use shellac as a finish, well, not only if you buy it in the jar, in the can, a lot of times you want to dilute that stuff, and that's how you do it, is with grain alcohol. Or if you want to mix up your own flakes for your custom blend, or something that's going to be really guaranteed fresh, so it will dry fast and hard and work properly, you're going to want some grain alcohol. If you're hand planing and you have a tough spot where you're getting tear out, a little grain alcohol on it will soften the fibers so you can plane it and you won't get as bad tear out, and it flashes off almost instantly. Works incredibly well if you're chopping end grain. I use it on the lathe all the time in bowl turning because you have little tear out points. So right before that final cut or that final scrape, a little squirt on it will not only raise the grain and get rid of that kind of stuff, but it'll make the cut so much easier. You use alcohol all the time. So as a bonus gift, you can go buy yourself a $10 bottle of alcohol, wrap it up. They'll think it's a bottle of wine, and then when they open up, you're going, and you can tell them, oh no, it's for the wood. It's for your wood shop. Anyways, there's 12 ideas for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Got a few ideas. Once again, I have links down below for the ones that do have affiliates, and if they don't have affiliates, or even if they are in two different spots, I will put links to both of them so you can choose. Y'all be safe, have fun, enjoy the holidays, and remember, it's always worth the effort to learn, create stuff. So all I did is create the video this time, and share it with others. Be safe, have fun.